Hello, welcome to the Two Tokens podcast recording. My name is Erik Snoekel. I'm the captain of the invoice token initiative within Two Tokens. And with me today is Tomas Fleischman of Informal Systems. He's one of our new partners that we joined the Two Tokens network, and I'm very pleased that we can talk about what Informal System does and the knowledge of Tomas Fleischman. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Erik, for inviting me. So I'm really glad to be here and joining the Two Tokens initiative. So maybe just a few words about Informal first. So we are a software development company based in Canada, and our purpose is to transform three institutions: software, money, and organizations. So we want to build high-quality software, we want to build high-quality money, and of course we want to build high-quality organizations. So right now we think all these institutions are kind of broken. So the software as such, there is not enough attention to the quality of it. Money is overly centralized, and the organizations are much too hierarchical. So, of course, we cannot solve everything, but our pledge for the next 10 years is to go into the direction of formal verification for the software, so making software better, going for the much higher quality of development. We are aiming for executable specifications to make sure at every step of the development the software is of the highest quality. In terms of money, we are aiming for a collaborative finance, meaning democratizing the money and giving everyone a place and a chance to fully participate in the financial environment. And in terms of organizations, we are going for the self-governing cooperatives, and also we as Informal, we are a cooperative.
And how would that work? So in which order would you go in such a process? You can do all at once, small steps, of course. I understand that, but what's the order that you have in mind to do that?
Yeah, we are tackling everything at once, but as you mentioned, in small steps. So we are taking small steps in all three directions. So we are developing better tools to specify and verify the software. We are taking small steps toward collaborative finance, and we are also practicing cooperative behavior, cooperative governance in the firm, and we are also building some tools and using tools to help organizations be better cooperatives.
Perhaps you can go a bit deeper into what collaborative finance is and how that would solve some of these problems.
Yeah, so we see collaborative finance as a system, as a powerful new mechanism that can improve the sustainability and reduce the systemic risk within our financial systems. So what collaborative finance does is it takes advantages of the existing networks of payment obligations and tries to bring better tools, better ways to manage our finances to discharge these payments obligations in the networks. So in this regard, the concept of collaborative finance has a really wide range of applications in finance, in supply chain financing, in managing our daily activities. And at this point, the collaborative finance principle is really strongly connected to the Two Tokens initiative. So what we need for this vision to come true is a very wide participation in sharing of financial information, sharing information about who owes whom what. And tokenizing invoices, for example, is one very concrete step into this direction.
And you need the tokenization, I assume, to be able to, that the privacy is still in there. So you don't want every transaction in the open, I suppose.
Yeah, in terms of privacy, there are many solutions from the technical point of view. So you can go for a very simple open sharing where everyone sees everything as it is on permissionless blockchains. Everything is open. You can obscure part of the information. You can obscure the identities of the participants. But what we are trying to do is opening field for everyone. So we are developing systems where privacy will be maintained even when it is shared for the purposes of making a better financial system. So this is technically possible today. The latest advances that were made in terms of cryptography are basically making this kind of system possible.
Right, using zero knowledge proofs and things like that.
Zero knowledge proof is one of the examples of how to go for this.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, clear. Okay. Let me see. So from collaborative finance, we go into that's the money part of things, but we also have the system part of things and the hierarchical part of things in organizations. How do they relate? Which one is the most important one of the three?
In terms of, I think everything is important, but the first stage, I think the quality of the tools we provide is the most important. So finance is not something to go easy about. Okay, so producing tools that would enable wider masses or that would enable democratization of finance. These tools must be of high quality and high standard. So you cannot do this by providing something that is experimental.
It should be totally riskless for all participants.
Absolutely. So this is why we are from the start. So we could go out with tools right now, but we choose not to because of this standard. So we are working very hard on achieving the highest possible standard before we publish anything.
And you publish, and then it's open source?
Everything that Informal publishes is open source.
So that can be used by others
to
build their own products?
Yes.
So and how does that go if you look at the governance part of things? So you have I would say, idealistic approach to things, but people can also use it.
Yeah, so we have, in terms of business, we have two tracks. So there is, we have secured finances for development of public goods. But then we also have certain parts that is not issued as a public good, and we are trying to find a balance between two. But collaborative finance, at least this part, finding a best solution within the payment obligations graph, this is something where we are aiming for a public service. While in terms of providing liquidity, there we are thinking more about more private solutions. So this is the balance we are trying to take by making tools widely available, but then also enabling participants to actually earn for the value they provide. So providing finance, providing new liquidity is a value-added service, while resolving the issues based on the information that is produced by the community, I think in principle should be a public service.
But if you roll out your tool set, it can be used in a closed environment.
Yes.
And you cannot go, because every economy is connected these days, and you cannot do a rollout worldwide to be used everywhere, I suppose. It's either one specific use case, or it is a closed environment?
I think so. The tools can be used for different purposes. So the tool, in principle, will enable open collaboration for everyone. So if somebody chooses to use the same tool in a closed environment, it is his choice. And actually, this principle right now are already used inside banks, for example, inside the payment systems. But the tools used inside the current payment systems are optimized to operate in graphs with the different topology. So the network of banks, the current payment system is a different network, is a different topology than a network of all the participants in the economy. And therefore, the tools, although they will perform similar function, are different. So we are using different approaches.
Okay, so if we look at banks, for instance, they communicate via SWIFT, or they use Ripple, they use Ripple for some payments. And you'd say that's similar to what we are trying to build for the open market.
Yeah, SWIFT is just a messaging system.
Yes, I know. Yeah,
and,
there's no money transferred actually.
In this regard, tokenizing everything and putting this on a blockchain is also just a messaging system. You're just letting everybody know what your financial status is.
Some value that is transferred from one wallet to the other.
But the rest of the tools, so the most important tool within the payment system is clearing. And clearing can be done on a variety of ways. So people don't know that clearing solutions are not unique. So you can actually, in any kind of clearing network, there are many millions or close to infinite possibilities to clear. And the financial system is designed differently now. So it's the major focus is to clear as fast as possible, to reduce, to make the payments as fast as possible. And this focus to reduce the need for additional liquidity from the banks, like these overnight loans that are very expensive, this is coming in front only lately. But in the environment where issuing new liquidity is very difficult, like in trade credit networks, the focus of the clearing is not in the speed, but in the amount cleared. So you are aiming for clearing as much as possible, and not necessarily every minute or every hour or every day. So these are kind of the differences. So you can compare the tools, but there are huge differences in how they are implemented and what kind of algorithms you actually use to execute this.
Okay. So last November, we already recorded a podcast in the 2 Tokens event in the Industriële Grote Club in Amsterdam. It was about the invoice tokenization, the standardization of the invoice token. How does the invoice fit into your scheme and into your into your system?
In the normal use case for firms in a business-to-business environment, let's say the invoice is the most widely used way to communicate who owes whom what. Okay, and it is kind of a normal first step. I think this is the normal first step to do in the direction of sharing information about who owes whom what. And these initiatives, I think, are very, very important. The standardization in this process is very important because what we have learned so far from the data we were able to collect about the debts and trade credit in the real life business-to-business environments is that the larger the network, the bigger the benefit for the network participants. So having a wide participation in these schemes is really the end goal, and it will bring the biggest benefits to all participants.
But the benefits are with the people
The benefits
and the companies?
The benefits are with all the participants in this system. So one of the interesting things about collaborative finance principles is that there are no winners or losers. So everyone wins. It's an interesting situation where.
But the parties that control the money flow at the moment, are they winners in your system?
In our system, there is no control of money flow. So
No?
there is no central party that would control the money flow. So the money flows are dictated by the network, and network is a result of the economic activities of network participants. So you do business with people, and this creates a topology. So it's not influenced by a central entity. It is influenced by the activity of network participants.
So those people that control money now, the banks, for instance, they still can benefit from the system, but they have to rethink their operation.
What is interesting in the trade credit obligation networks is that they are very complex. So because they are very complex, there are many problems inside, and they have a very strange behavior. One of the problems that exist in the current trade credit networks are so-called gridlocks, basically situations where without injection of new money, participants cannot resolve the gridlock by themselves. But the gridlocks can be resolved if you look from above, if you have this network view. And the amount of these gridlocks is huge. And what you see, how you see the gridlocks now, you see them through late payments, because you don't pay because you were not paid. And this is the result of the gridlocks. And these gridlocks and late payment are this is the major cause for defaults of the companies in the developed world. So roughly 45% of defaults have the prime reason late payment. And so now it comes to the banks. So why would banks allow the trade credit market to resolve certain financial issues for itself, not without them help? And the answer is very clear. Banks also don't see the gridlock situations because they don't have the trade credit obligations. The only way they can help is to issue more money, to issue credit. But they cannot issue as much money as they would want, or the market would need.
As needed, yes. Yeah.
Therefore, you have unserved companies. This then creates this domino effect, and this also creates spillovers of risk that is basically created due to complexity of a trade credit network. You have risks, they are not resolved, and then you have a spillover into a banking sector. So the benefit for the banks is that they have a much more healthy economy to serve.
Right.
The risk is vastly reduced. In theory, if everyone participates in collaborative finance principle, then the network never has any gridlock at all, and this is kind of the minimum risk possible.
So, but European regulations or national law legislation doesn't solve this problem.
The legislation, there is no special legislation for this kind of process. So firms can resolve their financial issues using the obligation law, the general obligation law, and the general obligation law allows for collaborative finance principles if the companies sign a cover agreement, they want to do this. So basically you have to extend the principle of set-off, which is very well defined in the general obligation law. And in the general obligation law, one of the reasons for set-off is a contractual agreement to set off, and basically signing up to public service as a
so you bring it down to every transaction to solve it there. And
this is just how to resolve the legal issue. In Slovenia, we don't need to sign cover contract to participate in collaborative finance principles, because our late payment legislation is actually making participation in sharing this information, who owes whom what, mandatory. So basically, I think we are one of the only nations that have this. There is also.
But does it work?
It works. So I told you. So normally we have around 1% of GDP in clearing, and it went up to 5% in worse times. And still the participation is relatively low. So between 5 and 10% of Slovenian companies actually participate in the system.
Okay, because non-payment of invoices is not a choice for all companies. No. It's just a thing that happens to them because their customers don't pay, or they made wrong decisions in their business processes. So it's not a choice, not always a choice not to pay.
Yes, it's not always a choice. Sometimes it is, but in many cases,
I think the larger the company, the more choice they have not to pay.
Yes,
and this will solve that as well, right?
Mm-hmm. So the choice of the way companies manage their working capital. So how much trade credit to take, how much to resolve with cash. These are individual choices, but usually the choices always have some effects. So in Slovenia, people who are regular participants in this collaborative finance principle, they report much better relationships with their suppliers and customers. And actually the biggest financial benefit is not coming from the reduced transaction cost, or the actual financial benefit of participating in this comes from better conditions you get with your suppliers.
Yes.
So you get a reduced price, or maybe you get a favor if you are in hurry. You maybe need a rush order, and it's easy to ask because you are perceived as a regular.
So it has a stabilizing effect on the whole economy.
Yes.
And on all participants in this very system. And that is working already in Slovenia, and that's why you started this initiative, I suppose, because you think it works here, and Slovenia is a relatively small economy in Europe.
Yeah. So my decision to come into this was like I was taking this midlife choice. Like, okay, I've done something in my life, so I went from sales through management to management consulting, and then I said, okay, Tomas, what can you do? So, and I said, okay,
not for yourself, but also for the world.
What do we have in Slovenia? What is so special? What could be interesting? No, and this is what I came up with. So I think it was a good choice. So far, extremely interesting. So I met so many very interesting people. I was invited to different projects, and there is a lot of interest. There is still a lot of work to do, but I think that I made the right choice.
I think so too. It's very interesting. So if we go back to these baby steps that you say that you want to take to get this into the world, how does that look for you in the next 1, 5, 10 years?
We We are actually already helping smaller communities, like city communities or the community for this community inclusion currencies in Kenya, for example. So we are doing everything from simple consulting, and we are also developing some tools these communities can start using, and these things will go live this year. For something bigger, it might take a little bit longer, but we hope to publish something by the end of the year that might be used with larger communities. But it will only be a first step. What we would like to is we would like to enhance partnerships with organizations that promote this kind of collaborative finance principle, democratization of money. So this is also why I'm here. So my wish is that we find a project together with 2tokens to demonstrate this on field relatively soon.
Yeah. So if you reach out to these listeners right now, then who are you looking for? What is your partnership that you look forward to the most?
I'm looking for providers of liquidity that have this open mind, that have a mission to enable communities to manage their economic activities better, not looking them just like an opportunity to extract some profits from them. I'm looking for business communities, unions that would like to manage their internal financial affairs better. I'm looking for cities, regions that have goals that needs a financial support but cannot use the financial support that is tied to interest rate and things like that, so that they need some kind of alternative financial instruments to support their project. So these are kind of partners we could do something good with. Yeah.
Okay. So democratizing finance, that is the track within 2tokens that you participated in, where the invoice token is also part of. We very much welcome you and your ideas into this very track. I think that we're coming to the end of this podcast now. Is there anything that I forgot to ask and that you still want to put out to the audience, the listeners?
No, I think we have exhausted this subject. At this point, I have to thank you again for the invitation, and don't be shy. So if you're not sure, come and ask. We will find solutions. Yeah.
Okay, very much. Well, thank you very much, Thomas. This is the end of this podcast. If you want to reach out to Thomas, you can do that through 2tokens, of course, or to Thomas directly if you find him on Fleischman on LinkedIn, then you could do it directly. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you next time back into one of the events of 2tokens or the next podcast. Thank you very much.
That was it for today's podcast. Thank you for listening in, and please subscribe so you don't miss out on our upcoming episodes. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find our contact details at www.2tokens.org.